I'm Neil Carstairs from Mortgage Corp, your property investment mortgage specialist. I'm going to be taking you through the step-by-step guide into buying a home. There are a lot of mechanics breaking down between buying a house, dealing with the real estate agents, making offers and settling on the purchase. The number one thing you need to do is have a team. Very important to have the right team behind you who understands your needs, wants, and legal obligations when buying a house. The first person is obviously finance. Why? Well, that's what's going to pay for the house. Obviously, your contribution plus the bank are going to come to party and you're going to buy a house with a mortgage. Now, getting the finance sorted is so important. The last thing you want to do is lose any hard-earned savings. Obviously, if the contract falls over and you haven't sorted your finance beforehand, you lose deposits. And it can be very stressful having to organise your finance after making a purchase versus beforehand and being prepared. So being prepared is the key. The legal team. Obviously, there are conveyancers and there are settlement agents and there are lawyers who specialise in property. Now, there is a slight difference between all three. We recommend a lawyer who we've been using for quite a long time, and you can search for your own. But ideally, they will handle the transaction from even before you sign the contract right through to settlement. And a good finance structure will allow that person, that mortgage broker, to work with your legal team in making sure it's a smooth transaction. Number three, building inspection or pest inspection. Building inspections and pest inspections are really important because a good building inspector will give you a report outlining any issues foreseeable based on the current property structure. So whether it's things like replacing stumps in the next 5 years, issues in any structural, broken bricks, cracks, hairline cracks, any electrical issues where someone's put a spotlight out using an extension cord connected to your mains. I've seen it. And also checking things like whether there's been any extensions, patios, deckings done without permits as well. And that's where your legal team, your building inspector and your finance guys can come and work together and getting a really good result. So once you've got your team together, the next step is making sure your finance is sorted. In getting your finance sorted, a good mortgage broker will be able to sit down and discuss all the different types of loan products that you're after based on your needs. So things like variable rate, fixed rate, variable and fixed, whether your loan's under 80%, above 80%, whether there's any mortgage insurance, whether there's any benefits if you're a first home buyer, first homeowner grants, first homeowner benefits, and also low deposit schemes that might be available. So getting the right advice up front from a good mortgage broker will be able to outline your things like how much you can borrow, what are your repayments going to be, and is the maximum amount of money that I'm after really affordable? Because what a lender may be able to give you may be out of your reach if there's any changes in your type of income or lifestyle going into the future. So a good mortgage broker will explain this to you in their one-to-one meetings. Now, we do that through our strategy session, and you can book below, where we'll be able to outline all the benefits and disadvantages of all the different products. Once you've established your finance and you have a written pre-approval, okay? It can be a pre-approval, it can be a conditional approval. But once they've worked out your capacity, your product, and they've gone and put your application together and they've submitted it and then you've got your pre-approval and it's a verified pre-approval, you should be ready to go to market with only a few conditions, things like either closing credit cards, valuations on whatever property that you're purchasing. So really, very important part is getting your finance sorted out first. Then talking to your conveyancer or your legal team about making offers. When you're looking at making offers on property, you always want your legal team to review the contract of sale. Things like any issues with titles, easements. An easement is where there's basically part of the property that you can't build on for whatever reason, whether it's power, water that runs through the property, and you might want to put a big decking or a shed, but unfortunately you can't. So having a good legal team go over that for you means that you're making the right decisions on buying the right property. The other thing is things like body corporate or strata. looking at things like the minutes of the meetings, whether there's any upcoming expenses that the body corporate had agreed to prior to you buying the house. These can be really big shockers for some people that have bought apartments or bought a unit in a block of apartments. So having a good legal team behind you can outline all the pros and cons of that contract and entering it. Also outlining with your finance side on whether you go subject to finance, whether you go unconditional, okay, and what conditions are there on your offer, such as building and pest inspection, making sure there's no major structural issues on that property, but your legal team will be able to outline the right terminology. We haven't even looked at a house yet, okay, so this is just getting the first step of many moving parts so you can buy a house smoothly. So we've done the finance, we're up to the legal, your building inspections come back, yep, you're happy, and you've now got to pay a deposit. When you've done your mortgage strategy session with your broker, they would have outlined whether you're using cash or savings or using a deposit bond, and whether the vendor is going to get it, whether the vendor is going to get a deposit bond. But there's also things like Section 27s where some vendors like to get access to their deposit early because they might need to use that to buy another house. All of that can be outlined with your legal team. So before you sign the contract, always have your finance and legal team run their eyes over it and give you the A-OK to go forward. So now you've signed a contract and you're happy to go. You have to send a copy of that contract back to your finance to get a valuation. The bank will need to do a valuation either by using a desktop valuation, which is using data from sales within the area of houses that are like that, whether they do a curbside valuation or whether they do a full inspection. Usually if the house hasn't been lived in before, the bank would like to do a full inspection, so they'll send a valuer out to take a photo, have a look at the property and make sure that it's all in accordance with being a house that can be occupied. So we're up to the valuation reports come back. Your finance has now gone unconditional and you are ready to roll to the next part. And the next part is your mortgage documents. Now your mortgage documents is basically your contract with the bank. This is where your mortgage broker will be able to sit down and outline any terms and conditions or any outstanding conditions, such as I said before, closing credit cards, paying off a personal loan, that you've agreed to do so beforehand. And then making sure if you've got any questions about how the mortgage works, what any of the descriptions are in any of the documents before you sign, and then obviously signing that and getting it back to the bank. Once you've sent your mortgage documents back to the bank, it's really important to go and organise your building insurance. The reason why you need your building insurance is that the bank wants to know that if the house was to burn down, that you've been insured and the bank has been noted as an interested party. So that way, if the house burns down, the bank can come into play and has an interest in the property with your insurer. So that's good. So we've done all that. We've sent these documents off. They've all been sent back to the bank, to the insurer. In the meantime, your legal team will be sending you a variety of documents to sign for verification of identity for whatever state you're in, for the titles office. They'll be doing the transfers of land and making sure that all the checks and balances work out with your finance team to make sure that the money that you've got matches up with the money that's needed to settle on the house. So this is where the waiting period comes in. Once you've done the mortgage documents, you know exactly what's going on with the funding. You now have to wait for settlement. So usually, before settlement, you want to make sure that your funds are either in the solicitor's trust account or in a dedicated bank account that can be debited at settlement. So for example, you've bought a house, you've paid a 10% deposit, but you've set your finance up and you've got enough money in another bank account that you only need to borrow 80%. So you need another 10%, plus you need the stamp duty and charges. The charges, we always tell our clients to have a minimum of $2,500 to cover things like legal fees, adjustments where a vendor or the person selling you the house has already paid their rates in advance. you now have to reimburse that to the vendor at settlement. So there's all these little extra costs that are either state charges, mortgage charges that apply to a settlement of a property, as well as your legal team wanting to get paid at settlement as well. So making sure you've got that extra money in the bank is key. We recommend a lot of our clients just keep saving between that period of putting a deposit down and settlement, because things like moving costs, whether you're using vans, hiring trailers, trucks, whatever it might be, it all just makes life a lot easier. Before settlement, usually about 1 week before, and we try to contact our clients' lawyers, legal teams, and our clients to make sure that all the funds and all the checks and balances are lined up. The way most properties are settled is they use a system called PEXA. Now, the PEXA system is an electronic system where the bank and your lawyer and the lawyer for the seller and the bank for the seller all are communicating on an electronic system, organising who's getting the money, how much money, where the money has to be paid. This all happens behind the scenes, okay? The only thing that you need to know is that you've got enough money in either your solicitor's trust account or in a bank account that they can settle on the day. Now, on settlement day, there is nothing to do. All you have to do is make sure that at some point your solicitor has called you, said settlement's been done, go and pick up your keys. That's my key. Okay? The house is yours. What we try to do with most of our clients during our strategy sessions is to make sure that when the settlement's completed, usually wait a couple of days, and then we get you to ring the bank to make sure you organise the date that you want your repayments taken out. And that's really important. Things like pay cycles, other direct debits you might have set up. You want to sit down and make sure that ongoing that your repayments are coming out at a time when you've got money in the bank, not before you get paid and you have to transfer money, and you don't want to be in that situation. So all of those little checks and balances are all outlined in our are outlined when doing a settlement for a property. So as you can see, there are a lot of moving parts. Having a team behind you is key to make this transaction smooth. All the rest of it, of doing inspections, dealing with real estate agents in regards to negotiating prices and deposits, it's entirely up to you. But a good mortgage broker will be there to assist you through that whole process. So having a good finance team behind you is key. Having a good legal team is important when it comes to settlement, and getting a good builder and pest inspection set up means that you're pretty comfortable that the house you're buying isn't going to fall over the day after settlement. So as you can see, settlement's completed, you organise a time to go pick up your keys, and congratulations, you own a house. Hopefully I've been able to cover off a lot of the process when it comes to buying a house, all the little bits and pieces that fall into place to make your settlement very successful. Click on the link below to book a strategy session, and then I'll be able to give you a call one-on-one where we'll go through all of these bits and pieces over the phone to get an outcome that suits your need. Go to mortgagecorp.com.au or check us out on our Facebook page, or you can go and join our private group. I'm Neil Carstairs from Mortgage Corp, your property investment mortgage specialist.
My name's Lee. This is my young family. We're from Melbourne. We've been lucky enough to find Mortgage Corp. It was via a Facebook ad. We'd been through quite a few mortgage brokers over the past 5 years, so it was important for us that we found the right mortgage broker. And after having some not so good mortgage brokers, Mortgage Corp had been outstanding to us. So after making the initial phone call to Neil, we went through a strategy session, and he gave some advice and what needed to be done. And 10 months later, here we are making some dream additions to our home. And not only that, we're in a lot better cash flow position. In terms of service, 5 stars. So Neil exceeded our expectations. It's a business well up with modern times. Their communication, knowledge, expertise, and the genuine time for your attitude was what really stood out, and it was so important for us. Even after settlement of the loan, Neil is still keeping in touch. So, and not only that, the bank that he put us to, we're really, really happy with. So 5 stars to Neil and Mortgage Corp.
We had an idea of what we wanted for our project, but Neil really put it in place so that we can see the whole thing coming through. we walked out saying, Neil, that he's the guy.
My name's Paul. I've been self-employed for the last 10 years, working as a carpenter. I found Mortgage Corp by Googling them after having a lot of difficulty through the Big Four, as many people have. Being self-employed was a big challenge even for the banks to try and put money together for us. My wife's also self-employed to add to our challenges. Finding Neil, straight away he gave us confidence that we were able to source and refinance, structure everything we needed to. When my wife and I have sat down about how we can put together something to invest and move forward, we've now onto our third property, hopefully onto our fourth. One of the most important things in our strategy is having good team members around us, and Neil's been a driving force and one of the biggest components of us being able to achieve what we're onto now and will be in the future. The thing we liked about Neil was he was straight to the point. There was no fuss, there was no hassle. He spoke very directly. Neil had a process in place that we had to follow. We did try and flirt around different ideas that we always had to come back to the way he set up and the strategy put in place, and that was successful for us to be able to get our pre-approval and purchase a recent property. I'd definitely recommend Neil from Mortgage Corp. I'd send him on to my family, friends, everyone I could. Couldn't speak highly enough of how much he's helped us over the years.